can't say enough, and we've heard it here again today from Mr. Sweeney, but the governor and the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office, the message is just so loud and clear about supporting the business environment in New Jersey. And I think it's absolutely imperative that that message, and I think that's why we're up here today, keeps getting reiterated and reiterated. Because a couple of things, and I'll kind of reference a little bit of the Realogy deal. You mentioned the whole issue about CEOs. The CEO, a fellow named Mr. Richard Smith, he was more than willing and able and almost wanting, have you, to relocate to Charlotte. It's an organization which, I'm not sure if all of you know, they're a franchisee organization. They oversee like the Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's, Corcoran, Remax, a whole host of organizations. The second largest employer in the state of New Jersey with in excess of 1,000 employees. Part of their organization also has a relocation. They're one of the largest corporate relocation organizations in the country. So if anybody had the ability to really seamlessly pack up and go, it was them. And they, for all intents and purposes, were really out the door. I mean, 1 foot was way out the door. They started their search probably about 3 years ago. We had just taken down a project in Madison, a project that we were really transforming into what is now, I think, a 21st century class office building for the knowledge worker that David mentioned. I mean, all these new corporations, these organizations, are looking for environments that take care of their #1 asset, their people. And so the aging office stock is not very conducive to that. So, I mean, if we can develop and create new environments for these people, that only bolsters the ability to keep them in the state. That being said, you know, the interesting thing is when you hear corporations moving, when corporations relocate, people relocate. And as a result of that, I think the workforce is a component of it, and the ability to tap into a viable workforce. But with these companies leaving, their workforces are leaving as well. And so you have, I mean, you have a great employee stock, whether it's in North Carolina or Florida or right now in Las Vegas. I mean, there's organizations going back to Las Vegas because of economic incentives. So I think it's one of those things that we have to keep hammering the message, both locally, both with the politicians, and really kind of getting that message out there, because without a constant push on this, we're going to continue to see somewhat of a drain. I mean, I think we've got great momentum going at this juncture. You know, I think it's one of those things that, you know, we're seeing finally some traction. We've been in 2 or 3 very difficult years. The real estate business, you know, is a fun business, but recently, the last couple of years, it's been a slugfest. And a lot of people don't really kind of, you know, see the other light at the end of the tunnel. It's been trains coming for years. So I think we're in an environment now, and we've got the collaborative support of the government to really kind of push some of these initiatives through, and it does nothing but benefit everybody. We've got a variety of projects going on right now from a development standpoint that are all taking advantage of urban transit, you know, rail transit, urban enterprise zone, from a state perspective and a local perspective. You know, the relationship we've forged with, you know, Woodbridge, we've got a big development project there, has been nothing but kudos to the mayor and his staff, because the reception we got there was, you know, nothing but, you know, open arms and the ability to kind of work collaboratively with us to get these projects done and bring in new tenancies down into the buildings and make them viable to the communities and make the communities viable. So I'm actually encouraged. I'm encouraged. You know, the Realogy deal was interesting. As I mentioned, what had transpired, it was all very kind of circumstantial as to how they actually ended up staying here. As I mentioned, they started their search probably 3+ years ago. They had excess space. I think they were like at 40,000 square feet. They only needed about 250 plus or minus. Made calls to the incumbent government at that time in the state of New Jersey, didn't really get a call back. Went looking, because they obviously had the resources to go out and search other areas within the marketplace, because they have basically a real estate operation that blankets the whole country. and basically had committed. They looked at our project, our designs, what we had contemplated of building, and then it kind of went quiet for 1 to 2 years, and then during that period, what had transpired is that they had really kind of embarked and focused and honed in on North Carolina. Decision was all but made, and there just happened to be, new administration comes in, there happens to be a coffee between Richard Smith, the CEO and president of Realogy, and the new Commissioner of Transportation at that time for the Christie administration. And they were just having a chit-chat over a cup of coffee. And all of a sudden it came out that Richard was relocating, and it's like, what? And so, and this was, I think, within the first month or so of the administration. And it was like, oh my goodness, you can't have this. Let me do something. And so, ironically enough, it was the Commissioner of Transportation that got the balls rolling and said, let us see what we can do. And you know, it's a great success story. I mean, you just think 1,000 people, 1,000 plus people, it would have just disappeared. There would have been, there would have been brokers, but it's not the brokers that work in these offices, it's all the corporate staff that works in this office. And right on the heels of that, I always mentioned Honeywell was the same thing. Absolutely right on the heels of that, within another, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, so within the first quarter of the new administration's tenure, these things percolated up to the top and huge successes. So again, I think the bottom line is, we've got a great advocate in Trenton. As Ted alluded to, and as you heard up here today, I'm a huge supporter, direct contact. I don't know if any of you ever had any interaction with the Lieutenant Governor. Amazing person, a huge supporter, not just of the state, but can be a huge ally of yours in your discussions, whether it's with tenants or developers or whatever the case may be. Has very strong voices, obviously direct access to the governor, and I know we all have direct access to her. On a going forward basis, on projects we're looking at, I call into the various agencies. Whether it's DEP, I got a variety of DEP issues I'm working on at this juncture of the organization. Policy, some policy issues. It's amazing the reception that's there. So, it's a great tool for us, and a tool that I think we all should use.
Thank you. Terrific. Mayor McCormick, so as long as there are 566 municipalities, each fighting for the same revenue and ratables, once Tracy has attracted the company and the Lieutenant Governor has done the romancing and the mating dance, and we'll get to Lauren and Tim's roles in a moment, but in between all that, there are discussions with the broker and the landlord. You want to get your hands on some of those prospects. The decision making process has already been narrowed down, as Tracy well articulated, right down to specific census tracts, sometimes that make the most sense. And you happen to be lucky enough to be the host municipality for some of those desirable or attractive census tracts. What you've heard, based on what you've heard so far, and as a former state treasurer, which puts you in a very unique role on this panel, and as a mayor, what's your initial reaction? What's been your experience so far? Todd alluded to the fact that Hampshire's been involved in your town. I know you've got other projects going on with other developers. What's been your early take on the change in administrations and the change in the role of government vis-a-vis business retention and attraction? And what would you like to see changed?
Well, I think it's been very, very positive. Most every time somebody comes in to talk to us, most every time somebody comes in to talk to us, they've already had the experience with the state. I will talk to somebody and say, look, I was on the transition team, I know the governor, I can help you with Trenton. And 9 times out of 10, they said, we've already been there, we've already talked to them, they've already been out and visited. So the state effort, I think, is better than I've ever seen it. 4 years I was there, and then 6 years since. I've never seen a state effort toward economic development work the way it has. And I was on the inside, like I said, for 4 years, doing exactly what we're involved in now, but not nearly to the extent. The local towns, I think, have to be involved in the process. All the state incentives are great, but if you get to the point where the mayor of the town, or the front office, or the planning board, or the zoning board are not supportive of a project, then all that's for naught. So I think it's very important that towns are involved in the process. Towns have a relationship with Tracy, have a relationship with Karen. We have an economic development forum once a year. Tracy spoke at it last year. Fantastic, very well received. People know that at least our town is open for business and willing to work with people, but I don't think you can ever underestimate the impact of the town government being involved. If there's a traffic light, if there's road improvements, if there's other things that we can do, if you have the wrong people in the local government, the whole thing can blow up.
People talk about regional business attraction. Do you think that it's naive to believe that, let's say where you are, Middlesex County, that Middlesex County would derive more benefit if all of the mayors teamed up and tried to pool their resources and their efforts and go after a company collectively? Or is it naive? Is it really still down to, you get yours and I'll get mine and we all have to fend for ourselves?
Yeah, it's naive.
I knew the answer, but just to reassure. And by the way, for those of you, particularly some reporters in the room, who've asked me in the past whether there could be regional efforts by New York and New Jersey, or New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the answer is it's not going to happen. Maybe a president can talk about America versus India or Ireland or any, but as long as we have 50 separate distinct taxing jurisdictions, we're not doing any regional marketing, in my opinion, and as long as we have 566 municipalities, I agree with the mayor, I don't think we'll be doing any regional marketing, but we will be doing state marketing, which is really, I think, the level. But let me go back to Tracy for a moment. So when, as you continue to go on the road with conventions, do you conceive of a day when we can sort of have a supermarket booth with booths within a booth, and counties and towns and landlords and brokers and law firms setting up shop within the state's booth to market their individual wares?
Yeah, I think that's very feasible. Right now we're looking and working with some of the EDOs in the state and the mayors, talking about feasible ways for collaboration. It's so different in New Jersey. The resources are different across the board. So we want to make sure when we create this opportunity, everyone has an opportunity to position themselves. So we're talking about those. I think once we look at key either industry sectors and you and I have talked about opportunities where we can have a large showing or pavilion, if you will, for New Jersey. I think those are out there, and they exist. We need to make sure we find the best one, and that's going to give us the best return on investment and to generate leads. I'll give you a good example. When we explore markets as far as trade shows, we have a goal for each one for how many leads we're bringing back home. And if we ever don't make that lead, our cost per lead ratio doesn't match what we're putting into it, we're not going there again. So we're still out there looking at the best models for New Jersey. Some are just logical, the life sciences, the financial services. We know we need to be there. But others that we reach out to and we're looking to see, if this is going to give us our best return, once we identify that, that's where we can expand. And that's where we're looking for opportunities like that today.
Terrific, thank you. The last two panelists are going to give you the takeaways that I promised earlier today. It's been a while since I've moderated or participated on one of these incentive panels where we've really gotten into the meat of things. Frankly, I think the last time was right after Mayor, then State Treasurer McCormick, and I worked together on the McGreevey Beat Commission that overhauled that program back in 2000. I'd like to think we made John a believer in that process, believer in incentives, that is. Did I have that right?
It took a while.
Facing a budget deficit, but realizing it makes a difference. The last two speakers were on the previous panels, or panel that I referred to, and I remember asking the audience, similar to this one, comprised mostly of brokers, who, with everybody being truthful, who could say that they have at least a basic working understanding of the difference between beef and brag. And sadly, I remember only a handful of hands going up out of an audience of several hundred. It's kind of disappointing and actually alarming. Disappointing because it's a pocketbook issue. That broker who doesn't have at least a basic working understanding of the difference in our state incentives is probably losing an opportunity for a commission if the deal goes bye-bye. And maybe, just maybe, to add a little bit of moral pressure to the picture, if the pocketbook pressure is not enough, maybe, just maybe, you as a broker are that only contact a company ever has with New Jersey. And if you don't lay out the story, they may never get to Tracy, or Lauren, or Karen, or the Lieutenant Governor. You're it. You are the ambassador for New Jersey. I hate to be hyperbolic or dramatic about it, but I've seen too many deals where the brokers fumbled the ball, and that was the end of the deal. I remember negotiating a lease where, Karen remembers this story, a CEO was coming in from Europe to basically just bless the deal. It was a perfunctory visit by a European CEO, literally with the lease 90-something% negotiated. This is a decade ago. And that CEO sat in traffic on 24, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. He looked at his watch, and the broker was looking at his watch and making buttons. Of course, we didn't have a lieutenant governor with a cell phone. We didn't have an administration that's become more user-friendly. And frankly, the deal, for a variety of other reasons as well, fell apart. But one of the primary reasons was no one was there to catch that fumbled ball. No one was there to say, well, just wait a minute. Let me make a call, and let's see if maybe the DOT has identified this jug handle as a problem area. And maybe it's already been designed, a solution's been designed, and money's been appropriated. It's just a matter of a year or two. Maybe we get the ex-Mars County Police Department to have a police person there each peak rush hour, morning and evening, to alleviate any congestion until the final solution can be put into place and save that deal, or at least try. No one really worked that way back then. No one really thought that way. Again, to people like myself who understand Trenton and are not afraid of Trenton, and understand Trenton can actually be helpful, it works. But this is what I do every day. It shouldn't have to be that only insiders understand the system. It should be that all of you understand the system and can appreciate the system and know how to use the system.
How would you get paid then?
Like I said earlier, the quicker the deal gets expedited, the sooner we can be doing what really adds value, doing land use approvals, doing leases, doing financings, doing acquisitions. You know, the lobbying industry in Trenton, they may have a problem. But for the rest of us who make our money not expediting deals, but doing the deals once they get expedited, it's working out pretty well for us. The last two speakers, we're going to work with Lauren Moore first, and then Tim will have the toughest part of all, really getting granular, but in a user-friendly way on the mechanics of these programs. But Lauren first. So we have if you imagine this triangle with, and then out to the side, Choose New Jersey. Choose New Jersey's out there marketing. Once Choose New Jersey comes back with leads, they go right to the top of the triangle with the lieutenant governor doing the dating dance. Once the company is serious, staying on the hook, using mixed metaphors, now it's really a matter of two meetings, if you will. One with the bank, EDA, and the other with the Business Action Center. The Business Action Center is other, non-money, putting all the other pieces together, whether it's making sure that the utility company delivers on a substation, whether it's the local land use approvals piece, whether it's getting some dollars out of the municipality to buttress what the state has in its financial and sales package, whether it's a tax abatement, UAZ money, for instance, or low interest loan money, or for employee job credits, and everything in between. The person who heads that office, Linda Kellner, could not be here today, but her right arm and left arm, I think, I've been working with him quite a bit, is Lauren Moore. And I'd like Lauren, if you would please, to walk us through that other piece before we get to the ultimate piece of money, what your office can do in keeping this deal together now that it's been identified with a lead. The lieutenant governor has done her usual good job of getting them even more interested and more curious about New Jersey. Karen coming up with the money, and Tim will talk about that. But in the middle, you're there keeping the whole deal together on a day-to-day basis. Tell us about the proposal, tell us about the meetings, and how it all goes from there right through to groundbreaking and ribbon cutting, please.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me this morning. Really excited to be here and make some new relationships. So to follow up on what on Ted's question, so how can we help you? You know, as a takeaway of how we can specifically help you. One of the primary, I'm going to say the primary product that the Business Action Center produces, and we produce this product with our colleagues at Choose New Jersey and at EDA with Tim and Karen's team, is a formal incentive proposal. This proposal will clearly articulate the resources and the programs that New Jersey can bring to bear for your project, for the project that you're working on with your client. So if you have an attraction or retention that's coming into space that you represent or that you're developing, what we do at the Business Action Center with our team is we want to meet with you as soon as possible. We want to get out there and we want to get in front of you, and we want to understand your project scope. We want to understand every detail of your project. And we do this in a team approach. As I said, with our colleagues from EDA on the EDA programs, we'll bring out additional colleagues. I like to have initial phone calls with you about your project so I know what team to assemble so that we can get there as soon as possible, meet with you across the table, and understand your project. This proposal that we prepared, we've reworked our proposals so that they're clear and crisp and concise with sharp estimates of the resources and the programs and the incentives that we can bring to bear for your project. And one thing I would like to add is we can do it in multiple scenarios. And Ted alluded that, hey, if the project changes or if you're looking to bring a customer or client into your space and it might be 150 jobs, it might go up to 250 jobs, or it might be in this amount of space with this CapEx, we're equipped to be able to prepare this detailed proposal in multiple scenarios. And with our with Church and DeWay and the Realogy project, these are things that we did so that when you go back to evaluate this with your customer, when you're looking at multiple scenarios, we're equipped to do that. And we assist through the whole process. My team and I, we take an account management approach. We're very, very particular about creating relationships. Ted asked a question earlier about the bubbles going up over, how can I help you, with leads? Well, one of the first things is I like to develop a relationship with you so that we can understand the property that you have, where you're working, what you're trying to move. If you have any customers that you're working with now that come into your space, please see me. Please see Tracy, Tim, and I, and Karen before you leave today so that we can help with your project and put this crisp, sharp proposal together. And we turn it around quick. Once we meet with you, I try to have it to you within 4 or 5 business days. And I'm saying that and I'm putting a little buffer in there because if it's an emergency and we have to do it much later and quicker, we will work 24/7 to meet your business deadlines to get the project done. And I got to tell you, on my staff, on my card and my staff's card, we all have our cell phones. We are available 24/7, and we work through holidays and weekends to help you with your customer because we know when you're crunching the numbers with our competition, we're there to help you understand the impact of our package is going to have on your cost per square foot that you're putting in your term sheet. So it's very, very important that we develop a relationship and we know what you're working on so I can help you.
Excellent, thank you. Tim, the money man. You've got the challenge of telling us in 30 seconds or less, I wish I had a clock. Is that right?
Yeah.
A ticking clock on each program. We'll give you 30 seconds per program. But we seriously, we would really like for you to, once again, as you've done so effectively in the past, let each individual here, particularly the brokers, let them in on the nuances of these programs in a way that if they are so lucky, after having visited their rabbi or priest to use. By the way, David, to get Boeing, I don't know, you'd have to go see someone way above a rabbi to get that Boeing deal. Better talk to the broker out in Chicago to find out what elixir was utilized. Tim, 30 seconds or less. Let's start with, should we do beep and brag first, or should we work from the mother of all incentives down?
No, let's block and tackle it first. I think I will keep it quick because I gather we're on a clock. I could spend the entire panel on each one of these programs. So
why don't we tell you what? To make it easy, why don't we do beep and brag together, since they're sort of paired up?
Sure.
We'll do it that way.
Yep. Beep is our new job. Beep is our new job program, and a lot of people we've been talking about a lot of acronyms and all those things. So I'll try to eliminate that if I can. Beep is our Business Employment Incentive Grant Program. Basic new job program. It is the proverbial giving the sleeves of your vest away. It's designed to be sized to new withholding taxes that new employees pay that don't exist in the state today. So if the state is going to give back a portion, between 10 and 80% of the new withholdings that an employee pays, then that's a whole lot better than getting nothing. It's a program that goes for every year for up to 10 years. It's a 15-year commitment. We have to find that there is a but-for, effectively, that the company is coming, and this is a material factor in their decision to locate to the state. So if the company is coming anyway, and we give 80% of the withholding taxes, that's not such a good bargain for the state. If this grant is the reason the company is coming to the state, we're doing a yeoman's job in managing the coffers. BRAG was its companion. It was a retention program, business relocation retention assistance grant, and it was an anemic program that didn't have any real significance until we had a little company called Honeywell that helped us see the light in trying to figure out how to make it a meaningful retention program, because back in 3 years ago, retention was really job one. We were losing jobs. We had to make sure we were able to keep the jobs in the state. Nobody was creating jobs in the country, right? And we needed to make sure we had a program that worked to retain them. It's a tax credit program. Ranges now from $1,500 to $2,250 in credits per job retained per year for up to 6 years, depending on the number of jobs that are being retained. So BEEP, very simple. BEEP, new jobs, grant, cash grant back to the company. BRAG, tax credit. Tax credits are transferable in the event that the company can't use tax credits. So BEEP and BRAG have been around forever, tried and true. I agree. BEEP made the Jersey City waterfront what it is today, and it is a very powerful tool.
Unlike the programs we'll talk about in a moment, no capital investment minimum?
Basically no capital investment minimum as a buy-in. There are some bonus points. You get higher awards if you have some capital investment. There are some requirements under the BRAG program that if you're going to just stay in place, one of the criticisms or the trouble with the BRAG program is actually force you to relocate in the original program. We've actually changed that so that if your lease is expiring and you're considering staying in the current location rather than leaving the state, there is a capital requirement of a 1-to-1 on the tax credits. So it's never easy. You know, when you start answering some questions, it's not always a yes or no answer. That one is sometimes.
And likewise, the other barrier to entry, much lower. Job threshold again, minimum number of jobs?
You have
Everyone's
to have,
very clear?
There are 25 jobs in BEEP for most jobs, 10 jobs for very targeted industries, and there's a 50-job minimum for the BRAG program.
And geographic breadth?
Our friends in PA 1 and 2 get special treatment, but pretty much it's available throughout the state. It's just a level of award that is affected.
So by virtue of the prompting questions at the end there, trying to set up a nice contrast for Tim to talk about the more generous, shall we say, incentive programs. BEEP and BRAG, very user-friendly, applicable almost everywhere, very low job threshold, really no capital investment requirement unless you're looking for a bonus. The cap on BEEP, $50,000 per job?
$50,000 per job. Again, based on withholdings and the score, that could be an employee who makes $130,000 to $135,000, up to maybe somebody who makes $150,000.
And translate BRAG a little bit, giving some scenarios before we move on to the other programs.
Well, BRAG was the key for retention in Church and Dwight, so it became a meaningful incentive. $22.50 per job if you're making a capital investment times 1,000 jobs. That's $2.25 million a year for 6 years. So it can be meaningful. And I assure you, the conversation, even with single sales factor, if we didn't have the amended program, we would be unfortunately not having our friends at Church and Dwight here in the room.
The old BRAG, for those who are curious, $1,500 per job, one time.
Yeah,
Versus that same job, if it were to go over either river, would be considered net new, and the company would get the BEEP equivalent in those states. They have fancy names too, where they would be getting more like $25,000 to $50,000. So we were competing with a huge gap between deals. We have something to brag about now.
Yeah, Tim is absolutely correct. I mean, when I mentioned about the favorable tax system, single sales is a key driver of that. But I count BRAG and BEEP as part and parcel of the whole favorable tax system of New Jersey. So all really work together, plus with the people we have in New Jersey, as the EDA and the Governor's Action Office, and put it all together for us.
Terrific. So now we have two outsized, really mother of all incentive programs, and I'm talking on a 50-state basis. It's rare that I see any state able to overwhelm for getting tax abatements, property tax abatements, and other pieces that might be pasted together. We have those too. We can talk about those. But I'm talking just simply on the key driver program for each deal. Tim, Grow New Jersey, Urban Transit Hub.
Grow New Jersey. Grow New Jersey is sort of like making stew. We put the best parts of beef in, we put the best parts of brag in, and we put some hints of hub sprinkled in it to make a program that was really appetizing. It's a program that has a capital buy-in, $20 million. You have to spend $20 million in a planning area, one or two, and there's some white elephant building carve-outs and some other targeted locations. But pretty much where you're going to build in the state anyway. You have to have a $20 million capital investment, and you have to either have 100 jobs at risk of leaving the state, or you have to have 100 new jobs in a targeted industry. Now, the program is not as simple as the other two that we just described, because there's several factors that go into what the actual award is. The award is based on employee, so retained employee or new employee, and it's $5,000 a job for 10 years to $8,000 a job for 10 years. That's $50,000 to $80,000 in total award. But it is limited by the total capital investment you make. So if you happen to have 1,000 jobs and you're making a $20 million capital investment, you get a $20 million award. If you happen to have a $100 million investment but only have 200 jobs, you're going to be limited to a $10 million award. So there's a couple overriding caps. There's a per company cap of $40 million per the program. Again, this is all over 10 years, so that'd be $4 million in tax credits a year for 10 years. And then we also run a net benefits test. So if the jobs are low-paying jobs, let's say, and they're not creating a significant new tax revenue source to the state, that may be a rate-limiting step. So it's not as easy as saying this is the benefit under the program, because there are a lot of moving parts under the program. But we work hard, Lauren and I, listening to the client's description of the program, and we try to give us the best guess as an estimate of what it looks like. Tax credits are transferable. There is a 5-year commitment to keep the jobs in the state after the 10-year period. There's a requirement that you cannot reduce your statewide workforce by more than 20% if you avail yourself of the program, and you have to keep 80% of the jobs that you're committing to either new or retained at the job site for 15 years.
Staying well under. If all the presidential candidates in the debate stuck to your time limits, we'd be in good shape. The last one, and I've had the pleasure of working with Karen, Tim, and others on behalf of Panasonic, Goya, and several others over the past several years. That's Urban Transit Hub, which I have to tell you, speaking just for myself, to even be having the debate that we're having in Trenton right now about whether we should infuse more money into this program. Let's just marvel at the fact that in the middle of a wicked real estate recession, we have had companies stepping up and committing to giving away one of the ingredients of the program, the $50 million minimum fresh capital investment. Just think about that. We've actually had an embarrassment of riches. States would give anything to have that problem, to be almost out of money in a program that's not pedestrian, but is pretty high level by dint of its $50 million capital investment and the number of jobs, but I won't give away that metric. I'll leave it to Tim, but let's just appreciate what we're talking about here. It's been a colossal success and has really been the B12 shot that's been needed for a lot of our distressed cities, starting with Newark, where I work,